He grabbed my arm so hard my fingers went numb, slammed me against the tile behind the kitchen, and hissed in my ear, "You're going to do exactly what I tell you, you insolent little black girl." I remember the smell of bleach and fryer oil, the hum of the walk-in fridge, and the way his spit actually hit my cheek while he said it like I was property. He really thought I was going to beg. I didn't. I looked at him and thought, this man actually believes I'm alone. So before I tell you how that hallway ended, and trust me, you want to hear it, let me ask you something. Has anyone ever looked you straight in the face and decided who you are, what you are worth, like you were a label and not a person? If it were you, what would you have done? My name is Natasha Williams, and for 2 years I worked as a waitress at one of the most expensive restaurants in Chicago, a place called Elegance. Picture marble floors, crystal glasses, private booths so deep you could sell a soul in there and nobody would see. We served senators, judges, district contractors, real estate men in $5,000 suits who talk about the community in public and then quietly buy the block out from under that same community at midnight. Elegance looked classy from the outside, but I'm telling you right now, that place wasn't a restaurant. It was a money laundromat with candles. People came in to shake hands and pretend to smile, and then they slid thick envelopes across the table and expected everyone to look away. I poured the wine, cleared the plates, said, "Of course, sir," and they all acted like I was invisible, which worked for me, honestly, because here's what almost nobody knew about me. I speak 4 languages. I have a business degree from Northwestern. I have a master's in hotel and hospitality management. I don't scare easy. And I wasn't there because I couldn't get a better job. I was there because my husband and I needed proof, not gossip, not he said, she said. Proof. People like Kevin, my manager, they look at a black woman in an apron and assume 3 things: desperate, powerless, and easy to control. You know what I mean. They think you're just lucky to be standing in the building. Let me slow down because I know what some of you are already thinking. Why didn't you report him? Why didn't you quit? Why didn't you sue? Cute ideas. Here's what happened when I went to HR the first time and said, "Hey," Kevin put his hand on my lower back in the service station and told me not to get an attitude when I moved away. HR smiled and said, "We'll look into it." Then they pulled me aside and told me I needed to watch my tone and try to be more of a team player. When I told them he was cutting my hours anytime I asked questions about money that didn't look right, they called me confrontational. When he called me girl instead of using my name, they said I was being sensitive. Yeah, that happened. HR wasn't there to protect me. HR was there to protect the machine. Elegance made a lot of powerful people feel safe. And when powerful people feel safe, everybody else gets disposable real fast. So I stopped arguing with Kevin. I stopped saying, "Don't touch me." I stopped saying, "You can't talk to me like that." Instead, I decided to play dumb and load the gun. I got quiet, and I started documenting everything. For 6 months, every time Kevin said something racist, I recorded it. Every time he accidentally touched one of us, I wrote it down. I started taking pictures of the original receipts, and then the copies after he fixed them for his special guests. I logged every envelope of cash that never went through the system. I wrote down who came in, who they met with, what time they sat, what they talked about, and what left the table that didn't look like dinner. I tracked which judge got a courtesy discount, which congressman got an off-the-record donation, which contractor slid over a check and called it consulting. I built what you'd call a file, except it wasn't a file, it was a weapon. And every week I quietly sent that weapon to one person I actually trusted. Now let me tell you the night everything blew open. It was a Thursday. Senator Richardson walked in. If you've never seen a politician off camera, let me paint it for you. The smile is the same, the voice is softer, and the humility is gone. He sat in his usual booth like he owned the room. Kevin was on him like a shadow. Senator, we've got your table ready. Nobody will bother you tonight. I'll take care of everything personally. They ordered stupid, expensive wine. They joked about campaign support, like that's not code for something else. They talked about permits, zoning approvals, federal friends, like regular people talk about football. And when the check came, Kevin literally sat down in the booth with him right next to him and rewrote the numbers on the receipt, so the money went where it wasn't supposed to go. I watched him do it. I watched a sitting senator hand Kevin an envelope casually, like this was just how dinner ends when you're important. Now here's where things got loud. Because when the senator slid that envelope onto my tray, he leaned in and said real soft, "Let's just call this a courtesy, sweetheart." It was $5,000 in cash. I was supposed to take the money, shut my mouth, and forget what I saw. I looked him right in the face and said, "No, sir. I can't accept that." Not rude, not shaking, not yelling, just no. I set the envelope back in front of him and walked away. And that was it. That tiny word no is what snapped Kevin. The second Senator Richardson walked out. Kevin stormed across the dining room like he'd been waiting his whole life to explode. He grabbed my arm so tight, I felt the bruise forming under his fingers. He dragged me past the line cooks, past the prep tables, into that back hallway where the cameras don't reach. "You really think you can embarrass me in front of a client?" He spit at me. "You think you're better than everyone here. Listen here. You stuck-up little black girl, you're going to learn your place." And he slammed me against the wall like he owned me. I said, "Mr. Torres, let go of my arm." He smiled in my face and said, "Or what, you gonna cry to your little husband, that failed mechanic who can't even give you a decent life?" He thought that was funny. He really did. And this is the moment where the movie changes. Because my husband is not a mechanic. My husband is Alessandro Moretti. Nobody at work knew that. On purpose. I never told them who I was married to because I didn't want to be Mrs. Moretti at work. I didn't want favors, and I didn't want fear. I wanted clean data. Leverage is only leverage when the other person doesn't know you have it. Kevin had no idea that 2 hours earlier, after I watched him doctor receipts in front of a sitting senator, I had already called Alessandro and said, "It's time." He had no idea Alessandro had been quietly watching Elegance for months. He had no idea my husband had already mapped who came in, what they paid for, and what they shouldn't have been paying for. He had no idea that my so-called little husband was already in the building. I heard Alessandro before I saw him. His voice came from the dark end of the hallway, smooth, controlled, cold. "I would say you should let go of my wife. Now." Kevin turned and I watched the color leave his face like someone pulled the battery out of his body. Alessandro stepped out of the shadows in a black suit, hands in his pockets, 2 of his men behind him. And here's the part Kevin did not understand. Alessandro didn't shout. He didn't shove. He didn't do that fake tough guy thing. He just looked down at Kevin's hand still on my arm and said, "You have 3 seconds to explain why you're touching my wife." Kevin dropped me so fast you'd think I was on fire. He started sweating immediately, trying to smile like we were all suddenly co-workers in the same department. Sir, I swear I didn't know she was your wife. It's just a misunderstanding between employees. It's nothing serious." Alessandro tilted his head and repeated Kevin's exact words, back to him slow, like a knife. "Insolent little black girl. Dragged her somewhere with no cameras." Then he looked him straight in the eyes and said, "That doesn't sound like a misunderstanding to me." Now you probably think you know what's coming next. You think this is where somebody gets broken against a wall. You think we're about to go full gangster. That's not what happened. What happened next was worse for Kevin and a lot cleaner for us. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. Alessandro turned his head and said one word. Michael. And another man stepped out from the corner of the hallway, like he'd been standing there the whole time. Gray suit, calm face. The kind of man you'd serve a glass of Bordeaux to and never think twice about. Kevin squinted at him. Wait, I know you. And the guy smiled and said, Yes, I've dined here 43 times in the last 6 months. You served me personally. Kevin gave this weak little laugh like, oh, we're friends. Then the man said, still smiling, My name is Michael Santos. I'm a federal prosecutor. Everything in Kevin's face dropped at once. That was the twist. This wasn't angry husband walks in and threatens the manager. This was a federal operation, and Kevin was already standing inside the trap. Operation Clean Plate. That was the name. 6 months of joint work between the FBI, the IRS, and Chicago police. 2,000 pages of evidence. We had audio of Kevin arranging bribes. We had photos of him changing receipts. We had time-stamped logs of cash transactions tied to politicians, judges, businessmen. We had bank trails showing money running through Elegance and landing in private accounts. We had handwriting analysis proving forged signatures. And now, thanks to Kevin's own mouth, we had harassment, racial abuse, and physical aggression. Michael opened his briefcase and read it like a meeting agenda. No yelling, no drama, just facts. Kevin Torres, you are under arrest for money laundering, tax evasion, racial discrimination in the workplace, and conspiracy to commit federal fraud. Kevin's knees gave out. He dropped. Hands up like prayer. Please, please, I have kids, we can work this out, I can cooperate, I can give you names, I can help you. And I looked right at him and said, Kevin, we don't need your testimony. You're not a witness. You're evidence. Let me ask you something. Do you feel bad for him in that moment? If it were you, what would you have done? Then we heard sirens. Real sirens. Through the back door window, I saw unmarked cars surrounding the entrance of Elegance. FBI jackets. Federal agents walking in the front door like they were clocking in for work. Search and seizure warrants, no smiles, no bargaining. Kevin panicked. I'm calling Senator Richardson. He'll fix this. He has influence in this town. You don't know who you're messing with. Alessandro almost laughed. Go ahead and call, he said. Senator Richardson was arrested 2 hours ago for money laundering and tax evasion. Judge Morrison, too. Congressman Walsh. Your favorite construction guy. They're all in custody. You were the last stop, not the first. Before they took him, I opened the black briefcase I take home every night. The one Kevin always made fun of. What are you keeping in there? Complaint forms. And I laid photos out on the prep table in front of him. Photo 1, Kevin at a bar bragging about how he keeps the colored employees in line and how we should be grateful to even have a job. Photo 2, Kevin altering a customer's receipt and pocketing the difference. Photo 3, Kevin putting his hands on Jessica, our sommelier, while she's clearly trying to get away from him. I told him copies of all of this were sent last night to owners and investors at 43 restaurants in this city. So even if you walk out of this in 10 years, you will never work in this industry again. Michael leaned in and added in that calm voice only lawyers and surgeons have. Your ex-wife Jennifer also received documentation of the $50,000 you skimmed from alimony and child support. She has already filed for full custody and a full financial review. And I watched it land. It wasn't just his job and his freedom. It was his kids, his name, his legacy gone in one night. Now let me tell you what justice actually looked like after that. Because it wasn't just Kevin going to prison for 15 years on laundering tax crimes, discrimination, and conspiracy. Justice was Maria, the same woman he used to insult in the kitchen, getting promoted to regional manager in the cleaned-up, certified legal version of the restaurant. Justice was Jessica, the woman he harassed, getting quiet funding from my husband to open her own wine consulting business. Justice was 12 politicians, 8 judges, and 15 businessmen, either getting arrested, losing contracts, or watching their reputations burn. Justice was the city passing something called the Natasha Williams Act, requiring any business with more than 20 employees to undergo independent anti-discrimination and anti-corruption audits every 2 years. You want to talk about full circle. The waitress he called ungrateful helped write policy. A few months later, I stood on stage at the Chicago Convention Center under hot white lights in front of more than 2,000 people. Reporters, mayors, law students, activists, people who honestly would not have looked twice at me when I was in an apron, while the governor handed me a plaque and said my name on live TV. Cameras from CNN, Fox, everyone all pointed at me. And I told that room the same thing I'm telling you right now. I said, for 2 years I was treated as invisible by people who thought they already knew my worth because of my skin and my job title. But invisibility can be a superpower when you use it right. Because if they refuse to see you, they also can't see you coming. The room went quiet, and I meant it. Later backstage, Alessandro kissed my forehead and said, "How does it feel to be the most inspiring woman in America?" And I told him I feel like a woman who turned 2 years of humiliation into a lifetime of purpose. Because this was never just revenge. Revenge is loud and fast and burns out. Purpose is different. Purpose is the Williams Moretti Institute for Combating Corruption. The organization we built to train investigators all over the country in how to infiltrate white-collar crime without screaming, without violence, without becoming what you're trying to stop. Purpose is taking something that broke you and using it to break the system that allowed it. Now let's talk about the part people argue over, and I want you in the comments for this. Kevin Torres lost everything. His job, his freedom, his reputation, his custody leverage, his powerful friends, the same people he bragged about, dropped him the second the lights came on. He became the easy villain, the public face of corruption, the guy everybody can hate. Meanwhile, the men in suits who used him are already spinning their own version of the story. So here's my question to you. Is that justice? Or did the system just offer up one monster so the others could slip out the side door cleaner than before? Do you think that's fair? I'm going to end with this. The best revenge is not burning somebody's life down. The best revenge is building something so strong they have to watch you win for the rest of theirs. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Tell me which moment hit you hardest. The hallway, the sirens, the part where he begged, or the part where the nobody waitress ended up with her name on a law. Tell me if you've ever been underestimated so hard you had to turn that into power. And tell me honestly, if you were me in that hallway, what would you have done?